This session is about Java 9 interfaces. What is new in Java 9 interfaces? Java 8 brought us default methods on interfaces. And in Java 9, an interface can now also contain a behavior instead of only method signatures. Right? Java 8 brought us default methods on interfaces, and in Java 9, an interface can now also contain behavior instead of only method signatures. If you have several default methods on an interface with a code that does almost the same thing, so if you have several default methods on an interface with the code that does almost the same thing, so normally you would refactor, in general case you will refactor those methods to call a private method containing the shared functionality. But default methods cannot be private. In Java 8, default methods are public. So in a scenario where several default methods on an interface with the code that almost does the same thing, the code does the same thing and used by several default methods, in general case you can refactor those methods to call a private method containing the shared functionality. But now the problem is we cannot have private default methods. Default methods cannot be private. So where shall we put this common functionality? The solution is creating another default method with the shared code is not a solution. Creating another default method with the shared code is not a solution because it's not for our goal, because that method becomes part of the public API. The requirement is to keep it private in order to restrict from the public API, but creating another default method which is public with the shared code is not a proper solution because that method becomes part of the public API. The solution from Java 9 is with Java 9 it is possible to add private helper methods to interfaces to solve this issue. So the issue is overcome by adding a private helper method to interfaces to solve this issue. With Java 9 it is possible to add private helper methods. So let's see with this example. So we have public interface my interface, we have normal interface method, so that is void normal interface method, and in Java 8 we had default void interface with default, so interface method with default, so which has the body as well, open bracket close bracket, and there's another default method. So now the problem was, now if there's a code which is common to both of these methods, the code is duplicated. There's no way to add another method, because if we cannot add in Java 8 we could not add another private method, but if we can have another default method, but the issue is if we add another default method that will be exposed via the API, so which is against our goal, which is not what we want. So in Java 9 we have private helper methods. This method we have private void init, and we have in the body we have system.out.println initializing. This method is not part of the public API exposed by my interface, so it is not part of the public API. So this is what is introduced with Java 9 So Java 9 interfaces. So if we go back again, in Java 9, an interface can now also contain behavior instead of only method signatures. So in Java 8, the default methods were introduced, and there was a problem. If you have several default methods on the interface with the code that does almost the same thing, there was no proper way to refactor. Normally we can refactor by creating a private method, but in Java 8 it is not possible to have a private method inside the interface to share the functionality. So if we add another default method with the shared code, then it will be exposed via the public API, which is not our goal. So with Java 9, it is possible to add private helper methods to solve this issue. So this is how it is achieved, and this is the code which explains Java 9 interfaces. That's the end of the demonstration.